Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. State your name and spell your last name, please.
David Gregor, Gregor.
Thank you, Mr. Gallucci.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Gregor.
Morning.
Mr. Gregor, how old are you?
64.
Are you currently employed?
I'm self-employed, yes.
Okay. And what did you do before you were self-employed?
My career, I spent 27 years as a state trooper.
Okay. And was that in New Jersey?
It was.
Okay. And what roles did you have when you were a state trooper?
Various roles. I started off in as a road trooper, went to a tactical unit for half dozen years, emergency management, and then later in my career, Homeland Security.
Okay. And did you, when you were a state trooper, did you teach at all?
I did.
Okay. What did you teach?
Many disciplines. I taught initially in special operations. I taught scuba diving. I was a firearms instructor, self-defense instructor. Later in my career, emergency management, crisis management, consequence management, a whole host of disciplines.
Okay. Now, you said that currently you're self-employed. What are you self-employed at?
I do. I do various consulting with regards to Homeland Security strategic planning, continuity of operations planning, emergency management exercises, traffic management.
Okay. Are you married?
I am.
And what's your wife's name?
Carolyn.
Okay. And do you have any children?
I do.
And what are their names?
David, Kimberly, Christopher, and Daniel.
Okay. And do you have any grandchildren?
I have one.
Okay. When your children were young, were you involved in any of their activities?
I was involved with all their activities. Sports, certainly the school, brownies for my daughter, ballet, just about everything my schedule would allow I was involved with.
Okay. And were you aware of your your children's activities as far as high school and college and where they were?
Very much so.
Okay. Were you aware of Christopher's college education?
Yes,
Okay. Did there come a time when Christopher moved to Baltimore?
he did.
Okay, and when was that?
2017.
And do you know why he moved to Baltimore?
I do.
Okay, and why was that?
Christopher was entering Johns Hopkins program, which was called the Urban Teachers, for teaching in the inner city. And at the time he was going to school, he was earning his master's while he was under a mentorship with other teachers in Baltimore.
Okay. Now, prior to Christopher moving to Baltimore, did you know a person named Rebecca or Brianna Micciolo?
No.
Okay. When was the first time you knew of their existence?
I received a phone call the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, from a lady that identified herself as Rebecca.
Now, where were you living at the time you received that phone call from this person?
Monroe, New Jersey.
Without telling us what Rebecca said to you, or this person that said was Rebecca, without telling us what she told you, what, if anything, did you do as a result of that?
As a result of that phone call, I called Chris.
Okay. And after you called Chris, did you receive another phone call from this person?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
A few weeks later.
Okay. And after you received that, without telling us what that person told you, what, if anything, did you, as a family, make a decision to do?
It wasn't until after the second phone call that a third phone call came from Rebecca to discuss how we were going to get involved.
Okay. Is that when you became aware that you actually had a grandchild?
It was.
Okay. And did you learn the name of that grandchild?
I did.
Okay. And what was the child's name?
His name was Corey.
Okay. And was that your first grandchild?
It was.
Okay. And do you know how old Corey was when you first became aware of him?
Yes. He was about 4 years old.
Now, when you received that phone call, did you come up with a plan?
We did.
And what was that plan?
Well, Corey began visits with us. And so our plan was to make him as comfortable as possible when he came to the house, which involved, it was almost as if you were bringing home a newborn. It was finding out his favorite foods. It was what size clothes he wore. It was getting out all the old sports equipment that I had put away years ago for my kids. It was creating an atmosphere for them to make them comfortable. We redid the bedroom next to ours, which had been my wife's office. Was originally a bedroom, and then as our children moved out, it became an office. It was a bedroom again, so we bought a toddler bed and bought a mattress and put a school desk in the bedroom. It was all encompassing.
Do you recall the first day when you met Corey?
I do.
What day was that?
August 8th.
Okay. Now, at that time, did your family have visitation with him?
Not yet. That visit was set up, and Christopher went to pick him up and brought him to our house for a couple hours.
Okay. Did visitation ever change where it became more than just that couple of hours?
On August 28th is when he had come to the house for an extended visit. And it was a Saturday and a Sunday, if I'm remembering correctly. And then subsequent to that, in October, is when Christopher got a shared custody agreement.
Okay. Now, you said a shared custody agreement, and when was that?
October, I forget. It was in the very beginning.
Okay. Now, and that was in 2019?
19.
Okay. So, in October of 2019, did Christopher become the residential parent?
He did.
Okay. And when he became the residential parent, where was Christopher living?
With us.
Okay. And from October of 2019 until at some point Christopher moved?
He did.
And when was that?
August 28th of 2020, he moved to Barnegat.
Okay. So from October of 2019 to August 20th of 2020, where did Corey live?
In the beginning of October through January, he was back and forth between locations. January 28th is when he was actually full-time with us in terms of being the residential parent, if you will.
Okay. Now, from the day, who lived with Corey when he lived in your home?
Well, my wife, myself, and Christopher, then my daughter Kimberly, and my other son Daniel.
Briefly explain the daily life of what happened when Corey was home with you living.
So he came to us full-time at the end of January, and school was in session. So at the time, Christopher was teaching in Camden, and it involved early departure and a late arrival at home. So in essence, for the first few months, I felt as if I was the dad. And so the day would begin when he got up, and we would help him get ready for school, take a shower. My wife would make him breakfast. My wife was working at the time. Being self-employed, I had somewhat flexible hours. I tried to make it around Corey's schedule. And so it was all-encompassing. It's going through his book bag, making sure his assignments were in there, whatever permission slips or money he might have needed for that day. It was seeing him off to school, waiting for him to come off the bus at 3 o'clock. They dropped him off right in front of the house, and generally I was there waiting with some kind of sports item or and he would come back, and we would be engaged in some kind of activity so he could unwind. And then I'd bring him in, and the first thing is we went through his book bag. And I say, wait, it was me, because generally it was in the 4 o'clock or so area. My wife was just getting home. And we had an agreement with the school at the time, as part of the program he was in, was to give us an analysis of how he did in school that day. And so every day there was teacher's notes in a little blue book he used to keep, and it was the first thing I went through when I went through his book bag, see if he had a good day or did he have a bad day. And then subsequent to that, it was homework, dinner. Hopefully Chris was home by that time so he could eat with him. If he wasn't, we did that. We got the homework ready, and it was always something that Chris wanted to spend the end of the day with him. him doing his homework.
Now, where did Corey go to school when he moved in with you?
At first, he was in Jamesburg School.
Okay, and did that change?
It did.
And where did it change to?
Right in the beginning of October, when the residential custody was assumed, we had meetings, Chris and I had meetings in Monroe to move him to the Barclay Brook School.
Okay, and that's located in Monroe.
It is.
Okay. Now, there comes a time when Christopher and Corey move out of your Monroe home, right?
Yes.
Okay, and when was that?
August 28th, 2020.
And where did they move to?
Barnegat.
Okay. So, in 2020, Christopher moves down to Barnegat, and who lived with Christopher?
Christopher and Corey.
Okay, so they lived together.
They did.
Between the time that Christopher moved to Barnegat and March 20th, did you see Christopher and Corey?
March 20th, 2000.
21.
I'm sorry, I was focused on something else.
Okay. When Christopher and Corey moved out,
Right.
on that day,
From August.
from August
To March.
March 20th of 2021, did you ever see
Oh.
Christopher and Corey?
Yes, many times.
Okay. How often?
As often as we could get down. We would take, I used to crab a lot in that area, so I would go down during the week if my schedule permitted, and the priority wasn't crab and it was getting over to the house and usually dropping off some kind of care package and spending some time with him if he wasn't in school at the time. And on the weekends, my wife would encourage me to go. I don't know how many times, many times.
Okay. We've seen a video of a treadmill incident that occurred on March 20th of 2021. Have you seen that video?
No,
Why not?
because I don't want to see Corey mistreated.
Okay. Between March 20th and April 2nd, did you see Corey?
I did.
And when was that?
March 22nd.
Okay. And why did you see Corey on March 22nd?
On the 22nd, Chris and Corey, they were looking for a home to purchase. And so, being that we were involved with the purchase in terms of helping, we went down, my wife was a real estate agent, and showed them two houses in Bayville. Was one, the other one was near Barnegat.
Okay. And how many houses? You looked at two houses?
Two houses.
Okay. And did you see Corey that day?
We did.
Okay. And what was Corey's demeanor on March 22nd?
He was happy and energetic. The entire time we look at both homes, we were talking about where his room would be and where would it be his yard to play with the dog. He was excited. He ran around a lot. I remember that because there was a situation at the one house on a trafficked street where as we were walking in the house, he ran out of the car and was running through the front yard, and my wife got all excited and ran after to get him because she was concerned with the street. But he had a lot of energy. He was very excited.
Okay. Now, after you looked at the houses, what, if anything, did you do next?
We visited my brother-in-law down in Barnegat.
Okay. And was Corey there?
He was.
And how was his demeanor at your brother-in-law's house?
Same. Happy, energetic. We were talking to him. I'm sure the visit was boring, but we kept saying, hey, we're going to go out and eat, and you're going to get French fries and everything to further his attention because it was all the adults visiting with each other.
By the way, what was Christopher's demeanor on the 22nd when you were looking at the houses?
Concerned. It was a major step in his life to purchase a home. Concerned that he could afford it. The homes we were looking at, of course, were all fixer-uppers. You know, we were helping. He's just starting off in his line of work, so funds were limited. And
Objection, Judge.
Okay, just a minute. So, what was his demeanor? Was the question I asked.
he was concentrating on the home, so he was very concerned.
So when you got to your brother-in-law's house, what was Christopher's demeanor?
Relatively happy, you know, asking questions about how could we do things with the homes. I'm talking about a whole host of things, but you know, it seemed relatively normal to me, other than the excitement about what the homes brought.
Okay.
Objection, Judge. It's speculation as to his subjective opinion as to normal.
They asked the answer, so it's fine.
Thank you, Judge.
After you visited with your family, did you finally take Corey out to dinner?
We did.
Okay, and where did you go to dinner?
We went to the Sun Harbor Grill in Barnegat.
And what was Corey's demeanor at the Sun Harbor Grill?
He's excited, excited about the food, and we talked about a whole host of things. But he was happy.
Now, between March 22nd and April 2nd, did you see Corey?
No,
On April 2nd, did you hear from Christopher?
I did.
And about what time did you hear from Christopher?
It was sometime after 5
Okay. And where were you at the time?
in the car.
Okay, and where were you going?
My wife had called me. I went home to pick her up, and we were heading down to Barnegat.
Okay. And can you please describe the conversation you had with Christopher, that first conversation?
The first conversation is when I took the phone from my wife. Christopher was on the phone with her. I could hear it was loud and very excitable, and I asked her to give me the phone, and then I got the phone.
Okay. What was Christopher's demeanor during that conversation?
Hysterical.
When's the next time you heard from Christopher?
A few minutes later.